Good morning, Rabotai. Breakfast today is sponsored by Yossi Levy as a Seudat Hoda'ah, and the week of Kol Bru is dedicated in loving memory of Sam Yisai Alav Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Shlomo ben Rivka, sponsored by his son Isaac Sayed. Baruch Hashem. Okay, I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of words that Paro says to the Jewish people. You know, they've been struggling and they've been suffering for such a long time. And finally Moshe Rabbeinu comes along and he tells them, you know what? Hashem remembers you. Everything's going to be okay. From now on, everything's going to be A-okay. You're going to be able to go out to freedom. Okay. What happens? The people finally, they kind of get a little bit excited. And Paro says, Tichbad ha'avodah al ha'anashim va'al yish'u b'divrei shaker. Add some work onto the load. Then they won't already fantasize. They won't already tell themselves that they're going to be saved with these, false words of hope, the false hope that they are being given. Just make the work harder. There's a famous story of the people in Siberia. They're in Siberia every morning. It's 40 degrees below zero. They get the prisoners up in the morning. They tell them to go out into the woods and chop trees. How many trees? They need to chop down 1,000 trees. Okay, every morning, it's freezing cold. They can't feel their fingers, their noses, their ears. They go out to the forest. They're sitting there sawing the trees, sitting there with the axes that they have. They're exhausted by the time they hit 1,000 trees. That nobody has an ounce of strength left. They barely make it back to their bunks, late at night. One day, one of the guys in the place, in the prison, he decides, he has a great idea. He used to be an engineer, and he figured, if he could get a hold of some tools, then all he would need to do is modify the saws that they gave them, and he could make the saws double the length, with a handle on either side, so the saw can be pulled by two different people. So one guy goes on the other side, goes like this, the other guy goes back and forth, and by the time he got together 5, 10 of these saws, the prisoners were able to cut the trees double as fast. You have two people doing the pulling and the pulling and the pushing of the saw. Turns out, after a few days, they're reaching their quota of 1,000 trees 3 hours before this bedtime. 3 hours before bedtime, they're finishing. The warden gets news. What are they doing? They're playing Xbox. They're watching Netflix. They're learning Daf Yomi. What's going on? They're in Siberia, right? No such thing. He says, okay, they finished it with 3 hours to go. 1,500 trees now they need to chop down. The guy comes out. He's furious. He runs up to the guard. He says, this is ridiculous. This is not fair. You guys told us 1,000. I figured out a way to make it quicker. Now you're adding more trees. It's not fair. Of course, in Siberia, someone cares that it's not fair. They take the guy, they throw him in solitary confinement. He's in solitary confinement at the bottom of the pit. And all of a sudden, and strangely enough, in solitary confinement, in a dark pit, what does he hear? He hears another voice. He says, hello? Pitch black. You can't see anything. The other guy says, hello. He says, what are you in here for? The voice says. He says, well, I was the head of the city in Moscow. So when they needed to clean up all the people in power, so I got sent to Siberia. He says, what are you in solitary for? He says, well, I designed an axe that could chop trees double as fast. They then raised the amount of the trees. And I told him, you know what? Fair is fair. We did the 1,000 trees 3 hours early. You got to give us the time off. The guy started laughing. He says, for that you're sitting in solitary confinement? He says, Dib, you think they care about your trees? Why are they giving you 1,000 trees to cut? Because you have a bunch of prisoners in Siberia. What's going to make them revolt? Time. They're sitting around twiddling their fingers. They're going to figure out how to escape, how to kill the guards, how to overthrow the whole place. Keep them busy. Take all their strength, all their energy from them, until the minute they're ready to go to bed, What are you going to do with the trees? Burn the trees. Throw them in the river. Who cares? The point is that this is a way of making sure that these people stay trapped. Paro says, Tichba avoda ala anashim. I don't care about the bricks. I don't care about what they're building for me. That's irrelevant to me. You know what the proof is? The proof is that Paro has them building cities that every morning collapse. Pitom Ramses. Our rabbis tell us Pitom is a acronym for Pitahom, the mouth of the deep. Ramses is an acronym for the word Ra-Mises, which means it wasn't able to support whatever you built on it. So the Jews are building and it's all falling down. What was the purpose of Paro having them build then? You know what the answer is? V'al yish'u b'divrei shaker. Let them not have hope. Let them not be able to think. Rabotai, there is such a thing as being so busy that you cannot think. Now I know that sounds crazy. I mean, I'm a pretty talented guy. I could walk and chew gum. Right? You know, I'm walking with my legs, I'm chewing gum with my teeth. What difference does it make? You think to yourself, how busy could you be that your brain is not, you know what the answer is? It's not true. Because when you're occupied with something, you're not thinking clearly. When you're distracted, right? Ask your wife, she'll tell you. You're doing something else, you're not listening to her 100%. You think you are, you say, I heard what you said. You know, you answer half an answer to what she said, but it's not the real thing. You said, yeah, I'm picking him up at 6, and I'm taking her to the store. She says, what picking him up at 6? He's home. He's sitting right there on the couch. The guy, right, the husband's like, I heard. She's like, you didn't hear nothing. He's sitting right over there, the guy. Your son, right? When you're distracted, you can't think clearly. But our world has a double dose of Paro. A double dose of Paro. Why? Because today, that which we are busy with, not only is it the legs that are walking, you know, distracting the teeth from chewing gum, the thing that you're busy with, distracting your brain. Today, our biggest challenge is, as a society, that our brains are engaged all the time. Not with important things, not even with things that we care about, but things that come our way. We have an antenna that attracts all of the, in Yiddish they would say, the Narishkeit. You know what that means? All the stupidities in the world are drawn to us, almost as if we're a magnet. What am I talking about? Of course, our phones. Social media brings everything to you. Today, how many times a day are you checking the news? Sometimes I like to just draw a parallel to this. You know, you have a guy, all of a sudden he's checking, did he get any messages? Checking him, get any messages. What did we do before we had cell phones? Did you go check your mailbox 6 times a day? Oh, did I get mail? Did I get mail? Did I get mail? Honey, I haven't checked the mail in 2 hours. I'm going to go out. I'll be right back. You go check the... No, you don't do that, right? It's amazing how the phone, it's changed the dynamic of the way we interact with the world, right? It used to be, you read a newspaper in the morning with your coffee, you were all caught up, right? Now, it doesn't work that way anymore. Google News, you scroll down, what does it say at the bottom? You're all caught up. How long is it before you have to refresh Google News? 1 minute. Because all the news in the world is relevant to you right here, right now. Now, the people who are deciding what's newsworthy, Shemot. I mean, I don't know, these are the most bored people in the world. All the things that they consider to be news. But Rabotai, you've taken this space right over here, which used to be the place that was the most private place in the world. You only gave access to this place to very few people, and now you've opened the floodgates. Let's say you had a guy you don't like very much, right? He calls you, you don't answer his phone calls. But Has v'shalom, if I didn't answer your phone call, don't think it's because I don't like you. I'm sure it's because I was busy, right? But the guy you don't like, you don't answer his phone calls. The guy, every time you speak to him, he has another conspiracy theory. You don't answer his phone calls. The guy's going to keep me on the phone for an hour telling you about this and how Illuminati and Mabarif and the Democrats and the Republicans and, and they wanted this to happen and they wanted this, etc. Hajj, I don't have the time for it. I don't have the headspace for it. You don't answer. But now, the guy, he sends you a message. you can't help it, right? Used to be, you got a letter in the mail, you decide if you want to open it. Now, you have that annoying red dot on your phone until you check this thing. Now, not only did you check it, the guy that you didn't want to necessarily hear from, about the thing you didn't necessarily want to read about, now he knows that you saw it. He's waiting for you to answer. You don't have to respond to him. You don't want to offend the guy. Oh, wow, interesting. You don't care about it. It's amazing. But we've taken this thing. It used to be, Paro understood that if you make someone busy enough, they can't think. In our world today, we have this to the highest degree possible. We're too busy to think. I sometimes feel that the only time I can think now is on Shabbat. There's no phone, no access. Only things that I think about, things I want to think about, right? But Rabotai, there's two answers to this problem. One is, okay, from now on, we're only going to think on Shabbat. Halavai, at least for some people, that would be Shechianu. They're at least thinking once in the week. But Rabotai, God didn't create a world with 7 days so that you could think on one of them. Every minute of every day, your brain is supposed to be in operation. We're supposed to be guided by our thoughts. We're supposed to be thinking how to spend our day and what to do in it by our thoughts. But we're so busy. It has to be that there's time that we set aside every single day where the phone is off. It has to be. That's what we're learning from Paro. If they're busy, they can't think. How many times is a person in a situation, they can't get themselves out of it? And you know why? They don't know what to do. Rabbi, I don't know what to do. And then they speak to you for 3 minutes, and you give them, they're like, oh, Rabbi, I didn't think of that. So sometimes I'm tempted to think I'm the smartest person in the world. And then I speak to my wife. No, sometimes I think I'm the smartest person in the world. Right? Look, I have all the answers to everybody's problems. You know what the answer is? You don't have the answers to anybody's problems. You have the answers to everybody else's problems. Shlomo, if you ever think of the answer to your own problem, that'll be impressive. Right? Why we can't think the answer to our own problems? Because we get so caught up with the challenges of our problems that we don't give our brains the time, the oxygen, to be able to think of a way out. Rabotai, I want to share with you something very beautiful. And I find this a very powerful idea. A lot of people have unbelievable emunah when it comes to their neighbor. You ever meet someone like that? You ever meet someone, right? Unbelievable emunah when it comes to you. So if Bar Minan, Hasu Shalom, something's happening with you, what do they say? Oh, Hashem has a plan. Right? If anything goes wrong, if they break their nail, they're already having a crisis of faith, right? But for you, you could lose everything. Oh, Hashem has a plan, right? Emunah for the other guy, Emunah and the other guy's cheshbon, right? Isn't that amazing? Everyone gives you speeches about emunah when it's your problem. When it's their problem, they're like, oh, don't talk to me now, but don't get religious with me, I'm asking for a loan, not advice, okay? Yeah, now listen, Rabotai, and I want to share with you something unbelievable. Has v'shalom, if someone loses someone very young, so what do people say? If someone passes away before their time, what do people say? A lot of answers people have to these questions, big questions. Oh, they fulfilled their tafkid, what they were supposed to do. They're in a better place in Shamayim. Hashem, one of my favorite was Hashem needed him. What did he need him for? Hashem didn't have him in yet? Hashem and Shemot, like Rabbi Hananya ben Akasha. Oh, we only have 9. He throws a lightning bolt, kills the guy. That's not how it works. What do you mean Hashem needed him? What does that mean? What does it mean? So, Rabotai, I want to share with you a very simple thought that was given over by Rabbi Yehuda Sadka. And I think it's thoughts like this that need a little space to breathe. And I'm just giving you one example, so please don't get lost in this example. There was a man who comes from the village, and he comes to the big city. Anyway, he gets on the bus, and the bus driver tells him, do you have a ticket? He says, no, please can I pay to get on it? The guy says, sure, no problem. How much is it? $2. He says, okay, $2. He goes, where does the bus go to? He says, well, you're getting on over here in downtown Manhattan, right? Spring Street, whatever it is. And the bus goes all the way up to the 220, the top of the Bronx, all the way right to the uppermost tip of Manhattan. Guy's never been to the big city before. He grew up on a farm. He says, this is amazing. Gets on the bus. He's happy like Larry. He's driving down. He's looking at the sights. Everything's unbelievable, right? Anyway, he sees another guy get on the bus, another guy get on the bus, another guy get on the bus. Every guy paying the bus driver $2, $2. They all sit down. Anyway, after the first stop, 2 stops, 3 stops, he sees 4 or 5 people get off the bus. Another couple stops, sees more people get off the bus. By the time he gets to Midtown, a lot of people working in Midtown, they'll get off the bus. Haddad's going out of his mind. Finally, he can't take it anymore. At the next stop, at 42nd Street, he yells out the window, guys, why are you getting off the bus? The bus goes all the way to 222nd Street, and you paid $2. What a shame to get off over here in 42nd Street. You're crazy. You're wasting the money. They're all looking at him like he's off his rocker. He says, what do you mean you wasted? He says, it doesn't help me to go to 222nd Street. I work in Midtown. I needed the bus to get here. Some people live life like a guy who's on vacation riding the bus in Manhattan. They're going nowhere. There's no direction. There's no plan. There's no goal. There's no achievement. They're just living day to day. They're getting through the day. A guy like that, there's no place to get off. There's no time. There's no Masha'enkin, someone who has a specific destiny, a destination in mind. It doesn't help him to get off at any other place besides for that place. Rabotai, we learned something very powerful in this week's parasha about this. Miriam, Hanivi'ah, goes to her father. Amram, at the time, he saw that they were killing all the baby boys in Egypt. So he says to his wife, why should we stay together, have children only for the Egyptians to kill? Let's separate. Anyway, Miriam sees that not only did he separate from his wife, her parents, but she noticed that when everybody saw the biggest rabbi, Amram, separate from his wife, they all also separated from their wives. Miriam came to her father and she says, Abba, Daddy, Shelcha yo gezerah kashem mishel Paro is worse than the decree of Paro. Why? Sheparo gazar ela ala zecharim. Paro only said the baby boys have to die. You killed the boys and the girls by keeping the men and women apart. They weren't having children. Paro only decreed that they should die in this world. You decreed that they should die in this world and in the next world by the fact that they weren't having children. Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka says, unbelievable. He says, what do we learn from Miriam's words? The first bit I get, the boys and the girls I understand. But what was the second thing? Paro is killing them in this world. You're killing this world and the next world. He says, you see from here that a baby, a child, an infant, that's born and gets drowned on the same day in the Yam Suf, that baby boy, that child, even if it lived for one day, even if it lived for a few hours, has Olam Haba. Because Miriam said to her father, Paro gazar Olam Hazeh, you gazar Olam Hazeh el Olam Haba, world to come. What people don't understand sometimes is that a child can be born into this world and there's only this much left for them to achieve in this world. They're born, the parents have the child, and that's what the child needs to do. Now, to think that thought, that I can get on a bus, and even if I go one stop, it was worth me getting on the bus because that's where I'm supposed to go. It doesn't help me to go further. I don't want to go further. You take me 10 stops, I used my $2 better, true, but now I have to walk all the way back. It made the bus pointless. Rabotai, when a person sees this world from a place up here, when they understand that I'm supposed to do, achieve, accomplish something, then the most difficult things in life you can wrap your head around them. But when you're thinking with your heart, with your emotion, when you're too mivulbal, too busy with everything to actually be able to think through anything clearly, your brain doesn't allow itself to be able, it doesn't allow itself to see any salvation, and everything becomes effectively a false hope. Rabotai, your brain is your most precious possession. It's your most precious space. Guard it. Keep yourself busy as much as you want. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not taking away. Keep your phones, no problem. You're watching the news, you're listening to the news, you're reading the newspaper, no problem. You're working, no problem. Used to be, you worked from 9 to 5, you went home, you didn't see work until the next day. And then you had computers at home, you could check your email. So you're still working on the email on the computer. Now people are emailing you, they're phone calling you 24/7. Where is the space? Where's the space to think? Paro understood the power. Stalin understood the power in Siberia of keeping people busy. But Rabotai, a fascinating thing happens when you allow yourself a little bit of quiet. Suddenly your problems are not so insurmountable. Suddenly you're actually able to deal with things. Suddenly you come up with creative solutions. Yeah? You ever say that? You ever hear someone say that? Okay guys, quiet, I need to think. People, even the word we use illustrates that. Quiet, people, they do this, they close their eyes, they close their ears, right? It's what we need to do. When we say Shema Yisrael, what do? Close our eyes. If I'm busy looking at a bunch of things, how can I actually internalize this? Rabotai, we need to learn to develop a focus that only concentrates on the issues and the problems at hand. And then suddenly, all the things that we want to be able to achieve become that much more achievable. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.